this is a time for people to step into courage. And especially for leaders, for business owners, this is the time where we need to be fueled by courage and we need to step up in order to lead people through these times of uncertainty.
Why do some people have the courage to make brave decisions and lead exciting, rewarding, and impactful lives, while others only sit on the sidelines watching enviously? Where do you find the courage to do what you do? Hi, my name is Andre Chandra, founder and CEO of Propelo Media. Leaders rise up in challenging times. In today's Ask an Expert series, I'm joined by entrepreneur and adventurer Franziska Iseli, who believes that anyone can learn to unlock their inner courage and live an extraordinary life. Franziska is the founder of Basic Bananas and decided to write about courage while on a multi-year motorbike journey around the world. All of that helmet time allowed her to ponder what people asked her about her business maneuvers and living boldly. This mindset has certainly paid off for her. Instead of having geography and circumstances shape her, she enjoys business success, personal freedom, and even convincing Sir Richard Branson to do something he rarely does. Listen to her story.
Franziska Iseli, thank you for joining us here. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me, Andre. I'm excellent.
All right. So you're the founder and CEO of a company called Basic Banana. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, just really briefly. So, Basic Finance is one of our companies, and I started this business just over 10 years ago. So, last year we had our 10-year anniversary. And the reason why we started is I came from advertising and marketing, and I found that a lot of the strategies that were available to corporations that I used to work with doing strategy work were not super accessible to small, medium sized companies and are really important for business owners. And so we started Basic Bananas as a marketing mentoring business, providing marketing mentoring, a lot of face to face workshops where people would come in. And we started in Sydney first, and then started running these programs, face to face workshops all around Australia. And then actually in California, we started in LA, San Francisco, Seattle, San Diego, and in Canada and New Zealand and Switzerland. And of course, now we had to change all the face-to-face training to be virtual, which has been quite an interesting journey.
Yeah, well, actually, that leads to my next question. How has COVID-19 impacted you both personally and business-wise?
Yeah, so business-wise, it's had quite the impact on Basic Bananas, definitely that business, because we couldn't run the face-to-face training anymore. So we had to be very quick at making sure we can still support our businesses that we work with in a virtual way. And I've just been working a lot more than I used to before. I have an amazing team. They're all working from home now. And that's also been quite an adjustment. We've always had a semi-virtual team. So some people, because we have team in different countries around the world, some have always been sort of virtual. And then we also have a headquarters here in Sydney, which has been closed for the last 2 months. And so with Basic Bananas, we had to adjust to doing everything virtually. And it's been really great to see that our customers, most of them, have been loving also the virtual training. And so we've just been adjusting very quickly to do that. And then we've also got a brand consultancy called the Business Hood, where we do brand strategy and build people's websites, brands, etc. And in that business, it's been mainly about helping these businesses to adapt very quickly, and it's been quite emergency driven. So very urgent. Everything was very urgent. It's starting to relax a bit more, but every business had something urgent that my team had to implement. So again, that team has been working around the clock. On a personal level, we spoke a little bit before, Andre. I think you and I, we enjoy, I think I'm making assumptions here, but we enjoy traveling and visiting places. And I've been traveling a lot lately until the beginning of this year. So on a personal level, I haven't been on a plane since March. I came back from South America in March, just made it back to Sydney before the shutdown. It was all coincidence that I made it back, and I haven't been on a plane. So I've been stuck also a little bit, but not so stuck. Just I've been staying put, and it's been very interesting. I've also been enjoying it actually. I do miss the road a little bit too, but I've also been enjoying staying put, and I live on the beaches here, so I get to surf most days. Still, we're allowed to do that. So yeah, that's sort of impact on a personal and a business level.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. And so you have a new book coming out. It's called The Courage Map: 13 Principles for Living Boldly. Can you give our audience a preview of what it's all about and where they can find them?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So the book came out last week, and it took me almost 2 years to finish it from start to finish. And the premises of the book is that about 2 years ago, I had this best worst idea, which I seem to have a lot of them, even more lately in my head. And that best worst idea was to ride a motorbike from Switzerland, where I'm originally from, to Kazakhstan along the Silk Road, which is about 12,000 k's in miles. I forgot how many miles, maybe around 8,000 miles. And on that journey on the motorbike, I started to write about courage and coming up with these principles of courage. And so in the book, I lay out 13 of these principles that are helping people to live more courageously and make also decisions in a way that is not so much driven by fear, but driven by courage. And even now, more so than ever, and you've noticed this speaking to a lot of people, is that this is a time for people to step into courage. And especially for leaders, for business owners, this is the time where we need to be fueled by courage, and we need to step up in order to lead people through these times of uncertainty. Because the only certain thing right now is uncertainty. And I really feel that as a leader, we need to bring more certainty in times of uncertainty by leading with courage. And so the book is available on the same website, thecouragemap.com. I've got a publisher, so the links will take you to Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, any of the book places where you can get books.
Got it. All right. Now, living boldly, which is obviously the theme of the book, what have you seen to be kind of the greatest roadblock for this kind of lifestyle? And what's your best advice for people asking, hey, how do I overcome it?
Yeah, this is such a great question. I feel like some of the biggest roadblocks have been just not knowing how to deal with this current climate. So suddenly we have this crazy change that was maybe quite unexpected for most of us, and people adjusting to the new way of working and living with families and homeschooling and not being able to go out and socializing. So it's been quite a disruption for people's living and working. And that's been challenging for a lot of people, and I still see it as challenging for a lot of, even I'm checking in of course with our teams, and I can feel sometimes how the energy is up and down. It's a roller coaster for most people. Even talking to business owners, one day you feel like on top of the world, the next day you're sitting in the car bawling your eyes out because you don't even know what is going on. So I'd love to share 3 principles actually from the book really quickly.
Okay.
That I feel have helped and are helping people to get through these roadblocks and to stay sane-ish. I call it sane-ish. And the first one is the principle that I talk about in the book is the principle on truth. And here the most important thing, and I've seen this in business too, is again taking some time to go back to understand what is the truth of this business. And for you personally also, you can do this exercise for both personally and business. What is the truth in the sense of why are we doing this again? Why are we doing what we're doing? What is our core purpose? And also, what are our core values? So what is important to us, to this? And the reason why I feel this is super important right now and is helping people to get through roadblocks is because this is a way to make the difficult decisions, because you get clarity again on why are we doing this again? what's the purpose of this business, and then you make your decisions based on that. And also a lot of businesses had to let go of team members and really get really lean. And so it's also a way to find out who is part of this truth, who is part of this purpose, and who doesn't really want to be part of it. And that's how you can make the difficult decisions. The second one is flow. And again, flow, because in life generally, but now more than ever, things are so unpredictable. And the only constant, there's a quote, I forgot who said it, the only constant in life is change. And because of that, if we can adapt more flow in our lives, and the metaphor that I'd love to share here quickly is look at life like a river. If you look at life like a river, you know that a river is never a straight line, and life is never a straight line. There's zigzags, there's undercurrents, there's rocks in the river. And if you think that your life is like a river and you are like the water flowing in this river, when an obstacle is in your way, instead of standing there screaming at this rock to go away and having a tantrum, instead of doing that, you know, oh, wait a second, I'm embracing flow and I'm doing everything I can right now. Eventually I will flow around this obstacle. And you just need to become more fluid. And we know this. We know that one of the best skills we can also give our next generation is adaptability, is to be super adaptable. And that's a skill that anyone can embrace. And then a third and last principle I'll share quickly here is the principle of non-attachment. This one I find really powerful. It's one probably of the ones that I am still learning a lot on this too, and it's one of the most difficult ones, because as humans we are quite conditioned to feel certain attachment to things, to possessions, to outcomes, especially to relationships, to our businesses. And because when we feel an attachment to something, and especially outcomes, when we don't achieve these outcomes, we will operate from a place of fear. And when we operate from a place of fear, the decisions and the actions that we take are usually a lot less useful than when we can come from courage. So if we can just start practicing this feeling of non-attachment, so we do have outcomes and we do have things we would love to achieve, we have goals, but we need to detach from them, especially right now, because every day is different and it's right. A lot more fluid if we can stay courageous and open to, okay, I guess I didn't achieve this, so I'm just gonna, go over here instead.
Right. I mean, I totally agree with you. So many people design their life around the circumstances they're in. Oh, this is my work, therefore I live like so. This is my geography, therefore I live like this. So certainly, looking at you, you're not defined by those. You define who you want to be, the kind of life you want to live, and then everything else revolves around that. So it's going back to that core value, your personal core value, and that affects your business core values and everything else.
Yeah, excellent. I love it. Yeah, I love your point too. I had a discussion the other day with one of my friends who is an entrepreneur, very successfully doing e-commerce. And the one thing that we discussed and that I highly agree on, and I think that's a good thing to share, and what you sort of touched on, is instead of being super attached to our business models, because we all have a business model, this is what we build, this is the business model, be attached to your capabilities. So rather than holding on super rigidly to this is my model and I'm going to stick to it, even though the market is over here, instead of doing that, you hold on to your capabilities, what you're good at, your strengths, your values. And this might mean that you're going to change your model because your market has changed and you need to change and adapt very quickly, but playing by your strengths. And I think that's a really good way to look at the current situation too.
All right. Excellent. Now, in the book, you kind of mentioned this earlier as well. You describe this long journey. It's a road trip on a motorbike. It's a great adventure. If someone wants to follow your footsteps, how should they do it differently now with the pandemic and after this, a post-pandemic world?
Do you mean in the footsteps of riding a motorbike or in the footsteps
Yeah, I
of?
mean crossing borders, from Europe, Western Europe to Eastern Europe, and then Central Asia right there. Um, I'm pretty sure the culture, the environment, everything's starkly different from start to finish. So how could someone do it these days?
Yeah, so these days, right now, and probably for the next unforeseeable future, it's almost impossible to do a trip like that. But it will come back again. So right now, it would be quite challenging to go on an adventure like this because most borders are closed.
Right.
Fortunately, I was meant to go back to South America this year to ride through the rest of South America. I went to Argentina and Chile, all the way south to the end of the world, and then I wanted to go back and go north and through all these other places: Bolivia, Peru, Brazil, and Ecuador, Colombia, etc. It's probably not going to happen this year. I mean, it's in my calendar just in case, but I think it might not happen this year. I think for someone who does want to do adventures like this, it's just keeping an eye open to see when it's possible again. And then once we can again, I think we definitely should, because I think what we should also do is not suddenly let fear stop us from doing things like this. We need to sometimes also, if people have an adventurous spirit, is to also almost walk the talk a little bit. So a lot of these trips I also do a little bit to show people that the world is not against you, and these countries that sometimes are being portrayed as being evil are actually, this is maybe a perception and this is maybe some politics, but if you go inside the cultures, you see that they're humans and they have your back if you have their back. So in the book I talk about how I really wanted to go to Iran. One of the reasons is because, and I had my visa because I have a Swiss passport, so it was a bit easier. This was before COVID and
Right.
before all the political things that are going down, which we don't need to get into because then we're going to talk for another get grumpy. But I wanted to go through Iran mainly because I'm really intrigued by the culture, and also because I wanted to show humanity and people that you can't judge a country by its leaders. You can't judge a country by what the media is portraying. So if people are adventurous, I think we should keep traveling and we should portray the culture and highlight the good also of the culture. So on my Iran journey, I did make it to the border of Iran. I rode through Armenia and then made it to the border, and I got in. The guy gave me my visa back and my passport. He's like, "Welcome to Iran." I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm in. This is crazy." And I was nervous and excited. And then when I walked back to my motorbike, there was an official, a border control, standing next to my bike, and he looked at me. And I put on my jacket. I was ready to go, and he said, "Problem." And I said, "No, no, it's all good, no problem." He's like, "Yeah, problem." And then he wanted to
Right.
see my bike document again. And what happened is that my bike passport didn't match up with my number plate because my mate, Mike, who was riding with me for some of it, he accidentally put the wrong number plate on my bike. So I had his and he had mine. So I couldn't get in and I returned, but basically rode back through Armenia to go meet him in Georgia to swap the number plates. Either way, I think it's important for us to not be scared to do things like that. If obviously I talk in the book, courage is not about being reckless. So it's not about being reckless and doing stuff so that you or someone else can get hurt, but it's about taking action despite the fear.
Right. Right. So let's switch topics a little bit here. Now, your book, you got Sir Richard Branson to write a foreword for you. Now, I've known you for a few years. I know you're close. He too is the one that lives life, very boldly. Can you share with our audience what's your biggest takeaway about him?
Yeah, so Richard Branson has been probably one of my biggest inspirations. I started my first business 11 years ago, and at that time, his book, Losing My Virginity, just came out, I think a little bit before then. And
Yeah.
I read that book before I started my own business, and I didn't really know much about him at that time. Growing up in Switzerland, maybe he wasn't, the biggest known person there. And so I read the book and I'm like, wow, this is exactly how I'm going to run my businesses. I love it. Irreverent, courageous, doing good, impactful. Read the book. And then when I wrote this book about a year, a bit over a year ago, when I started writing it almost 2 years ago now, on the first page, I wrote forward by Sir Richard Branson, because I asked myself who would be the best person to write a forward on courage, and especially also as it relates to business a little bit, because that's where I play in this entrepreneurial space. And my editor, when she got the manuscript about a year ago, a bit over a year ago, she said, "Oh, so is Branson writing your forward? That's very unlikely." And I said, "Yeah, I didn't know yet that, I haven't asked him yet, but I just said, yeah, he probably will." She's like, "Yeah, good luck with that." So anyway, I got invited to go to Necker Island for a tech challenge event and just ask him in person. So that was helpful. So my biggest takeaway and he said yes. Well, he first said he will look at the manuscript and then he will decide. And I thought that he's brushing me off. But then a few months later, he did actually send me the forward. And what I've learned from him, especially through his books, and I highly recommend his books. He's got also the next book now that came out not long ago. It's called Finding My Virginity, I believe. They're both great. And for me, what I see with him, and the biggest takeaway, is this courage that he has also in regards to, it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing or saying. You just stay true to yourself and you do your thing. You don't need to worry about I think the word is irreverent, which I can't say, I can't pronounce it, but it's a great word and it's a great way to be, as long as you do it driven from a good place, from a place where you are doing it because you're staying true to yourself, not to prove someone wrong or right. It's just, you're just doing it because it's right. And it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing or saying, you do your thing. And when you do it from that place of, I want to make an impact, it generally lands really well.
Wow. Well, that's a great story. It's a great example that encapsulates the whole book. The way you approached him, just living boldly, um, from one adventure to another. I think that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. And I was definitely nervous when I asked him. I don't get nervous that much. And when I asked him, it was the second last day. I was there for a week. And it was second last day. I was sitting there reading a paper. And I thought, this is my last chance that I can actually ask him if he's interested. And we've spoken a bit over the week, and not much, just a little bit. And he knew about my journey and what I was up to. And so I just sat down next to him with my heart racing. And I was also really honest. I said, "Hey, I feel a little nervous asking you this, but I just thought I'd ask anyway." And he said, "Look, I only write one forward a year and I get a lot of requests, but let me take a look."
Hmm.
So ask.
Wow. Yeah. The worst you can hear is a no, and then you just move on, right? It doesn't hurt. There's nothing to lose if you live boldly. All right. Well, Franziska, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share?
No, I think this was really great, and I loved your questions. I think I'd love to maybe just conclude with that sentiment. And I believe it was Michael Jordan who said that you will only regret the shots that he didn't take.
Mm-hmm.
So have the courage right now to try new things, because this is a good time to reinvent and abandon the old. And what I always say in my businesses here to my team too is, just break things and then pull it back together in a better way. And this is a good time to do that. It's a good time to throw out some of the old stuff and come out with new things, and take the shots that you would regret if you didn't take them.
Right. Right. Well, it's been always enlightening, always refreshing. Francisca, thank you so much for sharing. Um, I wish you the best. I hope things can reopen sooner rather than later, and you can travel and have a lot more adventures. And perhaps we can chat again after your next one.